I still don't understand why Swedish people do this. Now, before I explain what this is, I want to lay the groundwork and explain some things that are very, very unique about Swedish culture to try to understand this phenomenon a little bit better. The first thing is that Sweden is the least religious country in the entire world, depending on how you look at the data. But out of respondents that responded to the survey, 82% of people in Sweden say that religion is not important to them and that it doesn't play a large role in their life, which is the highest out of any country reporting. Another way that Sweden is extremely unique is that of all of the countries in Europe, people move out of their parents' household at the earliest age out of any country here in Europe, at the age of 18 and a half years old. And that's the average. So that means that there's a ton of people under the age of 18 that are moving out of their parents' house that are from Sweden. Now, this is completely the case. I've met people that have gone to high schools in different cities or towns than where they're from. So in those cases, these are people that were like 15 or 16 years old moving out of their parents' house into student accommodations or any of those types of things. So that's very unique. You think about like countries in Southern Europe, like Italy, Croatia, for example, the average age was over 30, and that's the average. There's a lot of people still living with their parents over the age of 30 in a lot of different countries in Europe. So Sweden is extremely unique in that way. Also in Sweden, almost half of all of the households in Sweden are childless, partnerless adults. So I actually fall into this category as well, being a 26-year-old single guy living alone in my apartment in Stockholm. And all of these statistics really go to show that Swedes are extremely independent. Now, the thing that is super surprising, the thing that I still don't really get, is that a lot of times people in Sweden will have kids before they get married. This is a very, very foreign concept to me. As an American and as somebody that grew up in a Catholic family, I'm not religious anymore, but I still grew up with a lot of these values of getting married before having kids. And there's definitely a stigma around this in the US. If you have kids before being married, it has this like negative connotation to it a little bit, which is completely not the case at all in Sweden. I have friends that are having kids that are not married and nobody frowns upon it here. It's just completely culturally acceptable in Sweden, which is a major difference. And actually from dating girls here in Sweden, I made a comment one time like, how come your parents, they live together but they have a different last name? They had been together for 20 years. And she's like, well, they're not married. I was like, huh. That's crazy that, people are together for 20 years and not married. But if you look at like the legal ramifications of marriage here in Sweden, there's not a whole lot of advantages of getting married versus just being in a registered partnership. At least for me, from like an immigrant standpoint, being a sambo or cohabitating partner with a Swede is pretty much the same in the eyes of the Swedish government as being married to somebody. In the US, that's totally not the case. You can marry an American and get a green card, which you couldn't do if you weren't married. So there are some slight differences between a registered partnership and marriage, but to sum it all up and not bore you guys with the details, there's a bigger difference in that in the US, and you can actually have more advantages, such as advantages with taxes and all those types of things. In the US and in Sweden, the differences are much, much more minimal. Because of that, people just don't really care to get married as much here. Now, while we're on the topic of relationships, dating, and marriage, I was reading this BBC article and it had some very, very interesting statistics because Sweden's a country with a ton of single people. As I was saying, you have the most adults living alone, highest percentage of households, all of that kind of stuff. And they did a study and only 1 out of 4 single people that relocated to Sweden from another country, only 1 out of 4 of them was in a relationship, in a partnership after being in Sweden for 5 years, which is very, very crazy. There could be a lot of cultural different factors that go into this, but I think the thing is that Swedish people, they're not quick to jump into relationships. They're not quick to jump into marriages and bigger commitments like that. I remember when I was dating a Swedish girl in America and I asked her to be my girlfriend after a few months, she was like, whoa, already? I was like, what? I mean, we've been hanging out like quite frequently for a couple months, but that was surprising for her that I wanted to take it to that next level. I've already made videos on my channel about relationships and the stages of dating here in Sweden, but it's definitely different culturally from where I'm from in the US. Now, because I've lived in Sweden for almost 4 years, I think that being here has had a huge impact on me culturally. I think about a lot of my friends back home in the US are getting married, settling down at earlier ages. The average age for getting married here in Sweden is much, much later. And I've spent the majority now of my adult life in Sweden because I moved to Sweden when I was 22. I'm 26 now, so almost being here for 4 years. And I think that has had an impact on me because I think about my view on relationships. I'm not really quick to jump into things now. I'm very valuing my independence. I know I want to continue to travel and do new and inspiring things in the future. And I just don't want to necessarily get tied down. I love being independent. I have my own place. I can go and do what I want, where I want, all these types of things. And I wonder if being in this culture, being in this environment, surrounded by all of these super independent Swedes has actually had an impact on me. That's where it's interesting how the society impacts the individual. If you found this video interesting, hit the like button. That will help recommend it out to a wider audience. And if you love my content comparing different cultures, especially America and Sweden, consider subscribing because I'm getting so close to 100K and it would be amazing to hit that this year. That would just make me the happiest guy ever. With that being said, guys, I will see you in another video. Thanks for watching.